FORA.tv. The world is thinking.
Although I've been talking about it for decades and arguing that we had a financial system that was very friable, very vulnerable, and it was the Fed that was creating the bubbles. And therefore, we should be looking into it and preventing these problems rather than waiting for cataclysmic financial crisis to hit. But and there were more than a few talking about that. But nevertheless, Congress and others were receiving too much benefit by a secretive Federal Reserve System that created money out of thin air and was able to finance big government. So there were two groups over on the Hill that loved this setup. The one group, the conservatives, they loved it because you could finance war without being responsible. And the left liked it because you could finance welfare without direct taxation. It was the indirect taxation through inflation, the looting of the money supply that financed big government. And the question, the best answer I have about defending my bill is asking a question: why not? I mean, why in the world should this much power be given to a Federal Reserve that has the authority to create $1 trillion secretly? And Congress says nothing. I mean, why not? I mean, it just means that it just makes so much sense. So the sentiment has changed. It wasn't because all of a sudden the people woke up and decided the Federal Reserve indeed needed to be audited and we needed to know more about the Federal Reserve. It had to do with the TARP funds. It was $700 billion. It's sort of like what they do after the emergency, like 9/11. Well, we need a Patriot Act. If you don't vote for the Patriot Act, you're not patriotic. And they rush that through in a couple weeks and nobody gets to read it, but the people want action. So when the crisis hit, TARP funds were passed, $700 billion. There's still a bunch of it floating around, but all of a sudden, some of those funds got into the hands of unsavory characters, like people who ruined their companies, and they ended up getting hundreds of millions, if not billions of dollars in bonuses coming from the American taxpayer. People say, what is going on? And they send a strong message out to Congress. We want to know what's happening. We want transparency. Let's find out what's happening. But then it became known to so many people at the grassroots level that the Federal Reserve is very much involved. They don't quite understand how the Federal Reserve created our problems, but they understand how the Federal Reserve has been very much involved. So though I have a different motivation for transparency overall because of the monetary system and what's been going on for years, right now the motivation is to know what kind of shenanigans the Federal Reserve has been up to and how they've been wheeling and dealing and bailing out their friends. Congress deals in hundreds of billions of dollars. The Federal Reserve deals in trillions. And it is we don't know exactly how much line of credit, guarantees, and direct loans that they have made and promised. And it's estimated could be $3 or $4 trillion in the past year. But we don't know exactly. So the real necessity is for us to find out. And then we deal with the aftermath.